So thank you and welcome. Everyone is just grabbing their seat. Just so you know, we will try to project ourselves loudly. We have people online through the webinar technology, and this actually works best for them to hopefully see us, see our presentation, and hear us the clearest. So we'll run through the AGM portion of it. We also have a mic in the middle of the room. So once we get to the presentations, and if there are questions from you here as well as online, we'll be able to take them. So actually with the speaker or with the microphone started, people can actually hear online the questions and things like that. So we're hoping everything's working. We've tested it and we're going to do our best. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm Lisa Moyledden. I am the president of the Iap2 Bc chapter. It's great to see many of you again, and welcome to new members or people that are interested in the chapter. I want to thank our guests that are here and presenters, which I will introduce in a little while. So right now it is, so everyone's aware, our secretary is actually on the webinar, Natasha Horseman, so I will be repeating a few things to make sure she's got it. So we'll call the meeting to order, and it is, by the looks of it, about 6:22. And I wanted to go right into making sure that we have a quorum. So our bylaws and procedures state that we need to have 20% of the chapter or 10 members, and we have confirmed based on the honor system that that we do have that for people that are here. And so Emily Jarvis, Mary Chudley, and Natasha Horseman, and as well as Amelia Shaw are all online, and they are all members. So we've certainly reached a quorum of 10 people, so we are able to move forward with that. With that, next, on your chairs, you should have some materials. We spread about every other one, so there are some up front if you would like them. The next thing is the adoption of the rules of order. So it's a list of about 14 things from our policies and procedures. So I need to get a motion. Oh, and we have Catherine Rockendale, Natasha making a motion to adopt them. And do I have a second? Anthea Brown is our seconder. All in favor? Any opposed? So the motion is carried. Thank you. So the next thing is the adoption of the agenda, which is also on your chair. And I will need a motion to move that. Catherine Rockendale again. I think this will be really easy for Natasha. She'll appreciate it. And we have Drew Ferrari in the back who has seconded it. All in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. So with that as well, there are the minutes of the 2017 AGM. So for people to know, and now I forgot, I made myself a PowerPoint that I'm not even following. So let me tell you, at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning when I did this for all of you, I better do that because it's really more for the people online. So sorry, I'm already behind. So there are the rules of order. And then I did make a link for the people online for our minutes. So it's from our last AGM. We keep them up on our website. Maybe. Or not. We don't need to show them right now. So with that, I wanted anyone to take a look and to make a motion. I'm going to take, Melinda Boyd made a motion to adopt the minutes. And do I have a seconder? Anthea Brown. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh dear. So with that is the report of the executive committee. So this is my part. I added a few pictures based on some of the great activities that have gone on with the chapter this year. Pardon me. So I just wanted to share a quick report from the executive. We've had an amazing year of growth for the BC chapter, a year of growth, learning, and sharing. I've been proud to lead the organization as president, finishing my final term. Working for the past 6 years as a volunteer executive member has truly been a wonderful experience for me. Meeting and working with fabulous colleagues and team members, helping grow the culture and understanding what authentic public participation is. So I wanted to highlight a few things about the chapter for 2018. The growth of the chapter in 2018 has been really kind of remarkable, thanks to a lot of efforts by many people in this room. So in January 2018, we started out with 149 members, and currently at the beginning of November, we now have 210 members. So we're pretty excited. We're growing a ton, which is really exciting. We have members from Whitehorse to Comox to Fort St. John to Powell River and throughout BC and the Yukon. We are working and finding ways to connect our members with technology, such as our webinars, and sharing information in different ways to help kind of connect our members. Thanks to our team on the executive and the help of other members in planning, promoting, and attending, our chapter hosted 7 different events in 2018, plus the AGM tonight. We are really excited because we tried to push the limits, and we held events beyond Vancouver and Victoria, hosting them in Duncan, the Yukon, Kelowna, and Comox. From P2 drinks to deep dives to local lunches. So thank you to everyone that helped make those happen, that attended. I think we're excited to see what the plans are for the year to come. The other exciting thing is we've actually had 9 different training opportunities throughout BC in 2018. And thank you to our training partners for choosing our province, BC, to host and working with our chapter to help grow P2. This partnership is foundational to help our chapter, to give back to our members, to continue to grow and improve the quality of P2 and advance kind of the field of public participation. Another exciting thing with our chapter is that we're now active on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. We found these are great ways to share and help connect our members, promote our events, both for ourselves as a chapter and for IP2 Canada, as well as share resources that we can find and easy ways to link it through social media. Last but certainly not least about the chapter is, hopefully many of you know, we actually cannot forget to highlight perhaps the biggest thing for 2018 in the province was the North American Conference in Victoria this September. So I think that's probably, I don't know if that's Natasha, Mary, one of those lovely ladies. BC was a very proud province to host. We had a team of amazing BC volunteers from across North America as well that helped make it happen. We welcomed over 370 conference attendees from around the world for 3 days of opportunities to learn, network, explore, and more in Victoria with new and old friends. Our P2 family, church, tribe, whatever you'd like to describe it, had a great time connecting or reconnecting. BC was also very successful at winning more than one award from IP2 Canada, so congrats to the District of Squamish and the City of Vancouver on their core value awards. So I want to wrap it up. For me, the last but certainly not least are the people. For me, the past board, this board, and the future board. We've had great past volunteers on our executive that have helped shape the chapter that we have today. Thank you to each of those people. I know a few that are here continuing to help us in many ways. In particular, Catherine and Drew, they're both here tonight. You remain huge supporters of our chapter. And now you're proud IP2 Canada board members. So congrats to both of you for that. And thank you again for all that you continue to do for our chapter and for public engagement. I'm sorry, I'm blocking my nice pictures. Our current executive, those that are resigning tonight includes Andrea Winkler, Anthea Brown, and Heidi Klein. Thank you for your years of volunteering, support with events, Andrea taking over the treasurer role, and Anthea taking charge of helping out with lots of events and planning a lot of this evening. So thank you. Our new board, congratulations to the new members, and a big thank you for committing your time, energy, and support to IP2 BC. I enjoy to volunteer a lot, my husband says. IP2 BC has been the best, most enjoyable and meaningful volunteer experience for me yet. You're joining a great group of existing members, Belinda, Natasha, Michael, Marcy, and Mary. Working with you for the past year has been a pleasure. I know that your enthusiasm and support, the chapter will be in really good hands. IP2 Canada, thank you for your ongoing support of the chapter. This includes $2,500 to support chapter planning and delivery of events for members. Drew Ferrari, Thank you for your graphic support of the chapter, which has continued even though you're no longer on our executive, and as well for being our favorite server at Wright. And then Catherine, thank you again for your efforts as chair of the nominations committee. I also personally have really appreciated your help as past president. You've always just been a quick email or phone call away if needed. So with that, the last thing I wanted to mention is, for the past few years, we have created the Donald Golab Award, and this is to recognize individuals who have demonstrated outstanding leadership in P2 in BC, either being on the executive or through your roles in the organization. So I just wanted to share that this year, the executive has decided they want to look at different ways to help share this great opportunity with our members. So we're just kind of putting it on hold to not do it at the AGM tonight. So I will leave that with the new board as to how they want to get the word out and hopefully get more people nominated and interested about that award. So with that, I would like to welcome Andrea up, our treasurer, to run you through the financials, which are also in your package. Do you want to come and stand here so they can actually see you and hear you?
Okay. Better. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So I'll run you through the financials. Our financial cycle is from October 2017 to October 2018. We have two accounts, an investment account, which we have in case of emergency, and a savings account, which is the chapter's operating fund. And so what you have in your package is the financials, and this focuses on the operating account. In terms of revenue, so revenue is generated through chapter events like deep dives where speakers are brought in to speak on engagement topics. And as Lisa mentioned, we had a number of those events this year. We also received some funds for promotion and marketing of IAP2 training events. And we received funds from IAP2 Canada for chapter membership fees and an annual grant. In terms of expenses, in terms of expenses, we have administrative fees, including consultant services for social media and annual payment for use of SurveyMonkey. Other expenses include board member expenses related to travel to and from annual strategic planning sessions, and chapter events like P2 lunches, deep dives, P2 drinks, and events like this, the AGM. So enjoy the food and the drinks at the back. And we also,
Sorry,
I did not make these slides. No, and then, of course, we fund a chapter winner to attend the national conference. And this year, one of the big expenses that you'll see is the national conference that was held in Victoria. And then you'll see the bank fees. This year, we transferred to online or banking online, so there were a few extra fees there, but an incredible amount of fees saved. So what we have is we had an opening account balance of $17,961.57. And we're closing the account balance closing this financial cycle with an account balance of $14,510.40.
Does anyone have any questions for our treasurer? One thing I will just state is that the amount for the IAP2 conference was actually typically the chapter that is hosting will pay for part or all of the welcome events. So that is that the expense was for that part of it. So yeah, on the barge. There was the party on the barge, yeah, which the weather was impeccable for. Thankfully, that was exactly how we envisioned it, right? So with that, I think we need to get a motion to approve the financials. So Catherine Rockendale will make that motion. Do I have a second? Michael Meyer at the back will second it. All in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. So with that, we have Catherine, our nominations chair.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So I'm just going to move ahead here.
Catherine,
So, yes?
just before you start, I just want to let you know that you've had a few other people join you, Monique Baudret and Taylor Hainstock. So you've got Emily, Mary, Monique, Natasha, and Taylor on the line.
Perfect. Welcome, everyone. Well, doesn't it go by itself?
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
It goes. That's the thing. It just goes.
Okay. So, as past president, I was tasked with the nominations chair and report. Am I blocking? Okay. And part of the nominations chair's role is to authorize the circulation of a call for nominations and prepare the associated material that's posted on the IP2 BC website and distributed via email to the members. The results of the call are summarized in a report, which I'm not going to go into detail here, but it will be part of the minutes. It's important to recognize that the role of the nominations chair is to review credentials and prepare a report. It's not the role of the chair to recommend any one nomination. My role is to ensure the nominations are complete and according to IAP2 BC's policies and procedures. On that note, we had Belinda Boyd, who was nominated for president. We had Natasha Horseman, who's nominated as secretary. Michael Meyer, member services coordinator. Marcy Hudson-Puller, training coordinator. Ali Versey, youth coordinator. And then in directors of large positions, Kevin Shapalski, director, Caitlin McDougall, Emily Jarvis, who is a director at large and the Yukon board representative, and Mary Chudley, who's a director. Those, in addition, we had two vacant positions where the deadline is October 15th, and we received no nominations for the position of vice president and treasurer. Because of this, IP2 BC's policies allow for nominations from the floor for any vacant positions. And so I'm going to call 3 times for nominations from the floor for the vice president and a nomination from the floor for treasurer.
So, Catherine.
If there's any, yes?
Sorry, Catherine. I just need to let people know if there's anyone online that's interested, just raise your hand and I'll open up your mic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that's Amelia Shaw, who's a great supporter and staff for IP2 Canada that helps us coordinate all of these. So I will call again. Yes. You need to come closer because I can. We have a nomination from the floor for. You need to speak here.
Kerry O'Rourke from Kelowna, in position of vice president.
Okay. So we have a nomination for Kerry O'Rourke from Kelowna for vice president, and I would just ask because I don't have the list in front of me. Is she a member?
She's a member.
Okay, good. That's important. Okay. Believe it or not, every year we get people who want to be on the board who are not members. So I just have to ask the obvious question. Any other nominations from the floor?
That's why I'm standing here.
I know.
I would like to nominate Monique Baudry for the position of treasurer.
So we have 2 nominations, Monique Baudry for the position of treasurer, and we've heard of the other person. And I just have to ask, we have Belinda Boyd, who just presented that last nomination, and Anthea Bragg. Yes?
Catherine, Monique's on the line. I've just opened up her mic. Do you want to speak to her directly?
I do, because I was just about to ask if these people have actually agreed to this nomination. And it's perfect because just to be quite clear, in the past we have had people do that.
Hello, your Anthea, are you?
I'm Catherine, and right here.
Okay, hi Catherine. Yes, I will with pleasure be your treasurer.
Wonderful, Monique.
Thanks, Monique.
Can you?
And I can speak to Kerry. She was at the event, the P2 event in Kelowna, and I saw her in person, and she is interested in being nominated.
Okay. I'm just going to ask for the 3rd time, is there any other nominations from the floor for these 2 positions or from online? Not hearing any, then I'd like to announce that Belinda Boyd, Natasha Horseman, Michael Meyer, Marcy Hottenson-Puller, Ali Versey, Kevin Shapowski, Caitlin McDougall, Emily Jarvis, Mary Chudley, Carrie Rourke. My pen isn't working. Okay. Right. Carrie Rourke. I just gotta make it over. And Monique Beaudry have been elected by acclamation. Thank you very much. I'm going to now turn it over to you.
Sure.
Please join me in welcoming the new board. I mean, you've already thanked them, so that's why I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's okay. You don't have to do that. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Catherine. And yeah, congratulations. We have a full board moving forward, which is really exciting for the chapter. I think it will just mean lots of good things. So with that, I did kind of touch on it in my my report earlier, but we did just want to do a quick thank you to those board members that are here that are resigning. So Anthea and Andrea, if you want to come up. I know Heidi couldn't be here, and I'm going to tag someone else to maybe take a couple pictures because I just remembered I should have been doing that, but I can't really do that. You got to be up here with me. And this is Belinda, our
Hi, everyone. So on behalf of the board and the chapter, I just want to say a very, very warm thank you to our outgoing board members who are hopefully going to feel very pampered by this tribute gift to them for their, I'm just going to make sure I get the names right. There's Anthea, Lisa,
Thank you.
and look at that, Andrea.
We can hear you laughing on the whole thing. Thanks, Jerome.
Thank you, guys. I'm sure everyone has a lot of insight into the work that the board members do, but no one, I've only been on the board for a year, and I've had the pleasure of working with Lisa. Her time and dedication that she's given makes me quake because I'm going to take this on. I'm feeling a little nervous, but she's been just inspiring, as has Andrea, and I'm so pleased we have somebody to pass on the treasure to. Thanks, Monique. And thank you, Anthea, and also Heidi. Is she on there?
She's not on there. She's in Portugal. Unfortunately, no, she wasn't tuning in.
So just thank you all, and this has been such a pleasure with you guys.
Well, thank you. So with that, I don't stay up here with me, Belinda, for a second. With that, I don't have, when I took over as president, there was something very fun that Catherine handed over to me. However, I was just going to very kindly hand over the torch that is imaginary at the moment to Belinda. So I'm really excited for you as president, and don't worry, it's not that scary. And I'm here whenever you
I said that to you.
So with that, you are now the new president, and so who closes the meeting? The new president has to close the meeting.
So motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Anthea.
Anthea and Caitlin.
Seconded by Caitlin.
Yeah, all in favor?
All in favor? Great. That means we can nosh and also listen to two really great presentations. So.
Yeah. Do you guys want to take about a 3 to 5 minute break, washrooms, or just outside?
No.
Who's knowing?
Those of us that are online.
Okay, sorry, we're just going to get on with it.
Okay, let's get on.
We're very from, whoa, don't worry. You've been very patient. They did wait a good 15 minutes for us to start, So with that, I will just do a really quick introduction to let them get to the goods. So really, we've introduced Catherine a lot, who is going to speak in a moment about some of her other work. So we talked a lot about her volunteering work that she's helped the chapter with. So this is her real job that she'll talk about a little bit as an engagement strategist, and about how to reach a diverse audience and different tips and tricks in an inclusive way. We also have Amanda Gibbs, Spencer Lindsay, who are both members of City of Vancouver Public Engagement Team, as well as Matt Halverson, who is also with the City of Vancouver, but the Real Estate and Facilities Management group. So thank you for coming. We're not sure how well this will go, but what we wanted to do is both of these teams have had successful core value awards projects through IP2. So with that, they have created videos as part of the process with IP2 Canada. So we're going to show them. We're hoping that you can see and hear both people here and there. We've tested it, but sometimes the volume is a little bit quiet on the videos, which we can't do much about. It just depends how. Yeah, so the first one is Katherines Project. Oh dear, I opened it 3 times.
If English is not your first language, it is way less intimidating to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody and to be heard in however halting your English is, than it is to try and understand a presentation that someone's making, and then to get up in front, if you have a question, to get up in front of a room full of people and voice your question.
Schools are really hubs of activity, and they really serve the neighborhood to bring neighborhoods together. And how valuable is that, like those connections really are.
You're trying to communicate a very complex situation, and that is hard at the best of times. But we also have a population enrichment, which is probably roughly 60% for whom English is not a first language.
40% of those would be Chinese speaking. We have large community of Tagalog speakers, Russians, and many others. In this small setting, I could fill up my confidence in talking to the public, which I could put on my resume, and eventually I could show others that, like, I do have communication skills. I've done something talking to the public before, and I'm not someone who's afraid to, like, talk to others. I should step out and, like, show my leadership skills and talk to the public more.
There is no doubt that when you go through any sorts of tough decisions, you're always going to have diverse opinions. If you can facilitate good conversations about those diverse opinions, you likely will end up with good decisions. You may not please everybody, but you get to the point where people know that they've been heard.
I think really what we develop is a trusting relationship that we will engage with our public on more than just our facilities, but on other things. And we found it really amazing to do things. And at the end of the day, we chose not to close any schools.
So with that, oh yeah, I'll do the other video and do you guys, yeah, sure. I'm not sure, the other video is clearly playing. Where is your mouse? Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to find the mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I shutting down?
So
You need to
Lisa,
go to that,
This one?
know where it is.
I want to go to
Lisa,
video.
Yes.
just so that you know, the video is not coming across particularly well for online, but I've just indicated to people that we'll send it out afterwards.
Thank you. So we need to close this. We need to go back to my PowerPoint. Not that one.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. This one is hard to hear, sorry. What?
Coming up.
Stand by. Nobody look.
The Iap2 Project is a community consultation project to sort of develop the future of the returning site.
The Indigenous engagement process was just part of a really big and well done engagement process to create a master plan for Indigenous Community Center.
The community center is the swimming pool, arena, senior center, daycare, library, the senior center, the 2 schools. There's something for everybody.
Sorry, I have to check, and I think Amelia's, I just have to see. I just have to check that Amelia's actually hearing us.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'll just turn the sound down.
Okay,
I can turn the sound down on this.
all right, here we go.
And without growing all of the resources here, so time for renewal, time for new stuff.
We went out to different organizations, Indigenous organizations. We met with leadership there, and we told them what the Britannia renewal process was. We asked how they'd like to be involved, and we did that early pre-planning work to set the stage for the process, so that when we started having those workshops on, recreation and on different aspects of the master plan, we could pick up the phone and ask them to show up, and a lot of them did.
We haven't done a great history with the colonization with the residential schools and stuff, so we don't like to be dictated to, and a lot of people do that to us. It's just like, here you go, this is what you get. And a lot of people, if they don't like it, they just don't show up.
There's obviously some mistrust, like a lot of different sort of community planning processes. It just ends up tipping your feedback on your post-it note and then not hearing back until the plan is done. So having someone there to answer questions from the city about what's actually going on and what's happening with their feedback and reporting back, and this is how we heard you and this is what it means, has been really, really important.
If people lose trust with the process, they tend to sometimes close down. Not everyone reacts the same way. One of my learnings in the Indigenous community, there's more tendency to shy away. If you lose trust, then it's kind of harder to speak up because of the whole history and background, and I appreciate that. I've learned that actually checking in with people and making sure that everything is going well, that they've been heard, is really important.
Our team made sure we spent time visiting the seniors in the senior center, having conversations that were more than just interviews. I think for me, in visiting the seniors at the senior center, I tried to make an effort to go in without an expectation that I kind of have a right to their knowledge and to their stories, or that they're necessarily going to want to talk to me. But I think once the relationships start to be built, then they're fine with participating in a wider process, as long as it's been set up in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable. So the whole process is a healing process, which is maybe a side benefit, but maybe it should be included as part of the design. So how do we do this to heal and rebuild those relationships that have been so unequal in the past?
So with that, thank you. Again, congratulations on your awards. So City of Vancouver won one this past year, and Catherine's team at the school board won it the year before. So yes, we wanted to, we thought it would be great to ask the groups, and I think they both have something kind of prepared, so we'll get Catherine to go first, but we had to pose 3 questions that we thought would be meaningful to our group today. So I think their presentations are kind of loosely based around that. So I'll just hand it over to Catherine, and thank you.
Thank you. So thanks, everyone. And some of the things that you're going to see in my presentation, I didn't know they were going to be showing the videos ahead of time. So some of them there's some similar things in there, but really I'm going to just advance the slides, and I'm going to talk generally about some of the big things about this project. Isn't it right there? No? Oh, okay. Technical difficulties for those online, just stand by. We're opening a presentation.
We can actually see everything that you're doing.
Oh, you can?
Mm-hmm.
Hi. We can hear you. Come on. I'm just going to turn the sound down a bit. Because, wow, Amelia, you're loud.
Sorry.
Working? Yeah. Okay. Oh, look, there we are. Okay. I can advance this now? Yes. Okay. I'm not the most technological person. It's a good thing I'm not doing a presentation on technology. So I wanted to capture some of the big things that this project was interesting for a number of different reasons. One is because when I first was approached by the school district, they had no experience doing public engagement at all. They had basically done some traditional work where they had town halls, and they invited everybody to come, and they told them their school was closing, and then they just stood back for the blowback, which was massive and very emotional. And so essentially many of the trustees and the staff were traumatized by that type of experience. And they said, you know, we're not overly keen about public engagement because this is what happens. So I did a series of presentations with them about what actually good PT looks like and what are the values behind it to build the internal capacity of the team in terms of thinking about what is it that the internal team needs, you know, how ready are they to do this, and what does that look like? Some of the key lessons that I would say we took away, it's still that not only, you know, this idea that who makes the decision and who's listening, it seems really obvious, but it's not always as obvious as we think, particularly when we're talking about when we think of public engagement, we're thinking about it in terms of the bigger public. But there's also an internal public, everything from the unions to the management, to the janitors, to the operations, the teachers, and the students. And the students are often told, but not, power is not shared with them, or they're not given an equal opportunity to actually have a role where they're making some decisions where they're empowered. And that was part of what we started to look at. Also, one of the interesting things that came out of this was, as part of those internal processes, I ran a series of workshops with the internal team to uncover assumptions, because within any organization or any systems, there's sort of ways in which groups think. And they think there's certain assumptions that underlie that people, we call it sometimes the skeleton in the closet, or the way that the system operates or decisions are made. And there's an integrated component that goes as part of that actually limits what you can do. And so we spent quite a bit of time up front, about 6 months, which you often don't get that amount of time. You get phoned on a project and they say, we've got a problem and you need to fix it, and the engagement's going to be next month. But this was really about how can we start early, and we spent 6 months doing the internal planning and really understanding and developing the plans and the strategy and building capacity. They had never done online engagement in any way, not even surveys. And so we talked about looking at what are different engagement tools, what are the strengths of them, what are the risks, and how do you mitigate those risks by building the capacity of the people who are using them, and how do you build transparency and the different kind of things that can come up. I would say one of the key success factors of this project was also that we sought community, and these were not the most obvious allies that you would think about. People often think about stakeholders, but what we looked at were who are people who are doing work in the community to build the capacity for people to participate in democratic processes. So, for example, there's an organization in Richmond called Success. How many people have heard of Success? And online, maybe some people have heard of it as well. They do some really great work. And one of the things that they do is they actually have computer training classes. And so as part of that, we approached them to collaborate and use our Engagement HQ as a demonstration on teaching people how to actually use an online engagement tool. What does it look like? How do you go through the steps? And they did that as part of the training they were already doing. So people were already in the community coming for this training, many new Canadians, people who had very limited English, and they actually used the tool of this engagement as part of the work they were already doing. And I'll talk about some other allies that we used as well. We also there was a lot of the internal conversation was around developing a deeper understanding of different perspectives, not just kind of, we know this is what they think, and this group over here has this traditional relationship. And what I started to work with, not just the trustees, but the staff is, well, what's the history behind that? What has led people to feel that way about management or about decision making, or let's dig a little deeper and really understand the history of what has led people to these positions and sometimes it's power imbalances, sometimes it's the nature of their neighborhoods, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that. But we really looked at deepening respect and relationships at every interaction. And it was all things like what you heard the City of Vancouver doing, asking people how they want to be engaged, but also making it easy for them in terms of, we started to look at, well, it might be a physical access thing, but it also could be a language and a trust, particularly for people who are new to Canada, who came from countries where there is not a strong relationship with government or being asked for your input. We looked at what might that look like. So part of the work that we did was in the internal workshops, I started with very simple things to relate to people in terms of what they felt like. So when I was working with the trustees and the staff, asking them, so when you, rather than say this is the engagement and this we're going to do it, this is how we're going to do engagement, and this is what good P2 looks like, which we did get to. I actually asked them first around how they know when they're being treated respectfully, and what do they believe about treating others respectfully. And I asked them to come up with 1 to 3 sentences, and then we posted them on Post-it notes to get a sense of the assumptions that people had, and then we had a discussion around that. And I would encourage you to do that with people that you work with to find out. So, because I've asked these questions before, and people have said to me, "Oh yeah, we know what they'll say." And I said, "Well, let's ask your community what they would say." And the things that come up often surprise people. So it's a good way to kind of dig into what people think about respect. I didn't want to go a lot into the tools. You can actually look at the materials online, and you can go to the Richmond School District's Engagement HQ website. It's still all there. All the materials are there. But we use the traditional, from the stakeholder scans to the Post-it note type things. I actually use, if you haven't used it, the Post-it Plus app. How many people have used that? Oh, nobody in a whole room. Okay, you got to check out Post-it Plus, because you post on the wall, and you basically post your Post-its and use Post-it Plus, and essentially it takes a picture of your Post-its and then allows you to transcribe it into a PDF, Excel document with everybody's handwriting, a PowerPoint. You can use it in presentations. So you can actually, when you were talking about, like when we did ads or anything, we could use and show exactly in people's words what they thought. It's a great tool, but there's lots of them out there. And I'm sure for those in the training, I mean, that's a big part of the training, is you learn all the great tools, and there's lots out there. So this is something it was a cartoon I found, and I don't know, have people ever seen this cartoon? Basically what it says is what the students wanted on the left, and then in the middle it says, as teachers requested it, as principals ordered it, as the Board of Education approved it on the left, and as maintenance installed it on the right. Well, this made them howl at the district office, because I said, here is why perspectives are so different. And it doesn't matter what organization you're looking at, you could change the names. This could be a city government, and you look at, in terms of, you can change the names and put it there. It's about people. So we did some really great things, but I think if I had to say what is the one thing that really stood out for me that was the most powerful, is we put out a call to students in grades 10, 11, and 12. And we basically asked them if they wanted to improve their leadership and communication skills. And I've done work with the universities in terms of young people and providing leadership training. And I know that some of the skills that the universities say that they want their young people to have are around engagement, because they do so much group work, and it's so important for the youth. And so as part of that, we put out this call, and we got bombarded. There were so many students. I had to run 4 weeks of training. I was out there all the time. It became a volunteer effort, actually, because they were completely jazzed about learning not only communication skills, but facilitation skills. We made it really fun. We did role playing. We did all the classic stuff, but it was all small little bits, because I'm actually not a trainer I'm a facilitator by trade, and but I made it as a facilitated workshop, and we had so much fun. And they brought some really interesting things to it, and it was an eye opener for me in terms of working with these young people. I asked them things like, what experience do you have leading groups? And it was a way for me to figure out who was in the room, because I would get 30 to 40 students in the gym, and you'll see some of the pictures. And some had lots. I mean, here's one. Some had none. And I went to almost all of the high schools because we got so much demand for these students. And the amazing thing about Richmond and these kids, which gave me great hope for humanity, was we had, in the end, we had about 60 kids who wanted to be these ambassadors, and they spoke a combination of about 73 different languages. It was unbelievable, and some of them spoke 5 or 6. I was amazed. I'm like, I can barely speak French. Anyway, I taught them everything basic, from tools to managing a flip chart, which seems really obvious, to, how do you record feedback, and what does that look like? And these are just some of the kids. And we did the classics where we went out in the mall. But what we were doing out in the mall was we were talking to them generally about the process. We used some iPad surveys, which the students really loved. And essentially what we were doing is driving them to the Engagement HQ website. And we used that, and we used a number of tools consistently over almost a 2-year period to drive people to that website. Everything from, and one of the things was a bookmark, and we handed that out on the Canada Day Parade, and one side was in English, the other side was in Simplified Chinese, and we used all different kinds of things, and people came, and these students that we trained spoke to their families, and they came from all of the different areas, and some of the areas were in Richmond have very low socioeconomic background. We actually ran because it was difficult for the parents. Some of them couldn't even afford the bus fare. So we actually had the sessions during the day when the kids were at school. We served food, the traditional things that you would do in P2 engagement, but we looked at what do they need to know? And some of them, the parents and the grandparents would come and they did not speak English. So I trained the kids on how to actually act as interpreters and how to take the question, and then we would have the trustees and the engineers, and they would answer the questions, and the kids would actually respond back in whatever the language was. And I can tell you the languages were diverse. It was unbelievable. We also had, we did Post-its, and the kids, we did have translators as well who could transcribe, because some people put the, they actually put the Post-its in their traditional languages, not just in written Chinese, but in many different languages. So because the school district had staff who spoke the many different languages, they were able to translate what the Post-it said. And the student ambassadors were amazing. Like, and they would sit with people and show them how to give input online. They told them, people came when they were taking pictures with their kids, you know, and mom and dad and the grandparents, but they also talked to them about really complex subjects. So things like not just seismic upgrades, but heating and all kinds of very complex issues. And what happened was we, the Engagement HQ website basically got 25,410 unique visits in a school population of 22,512 kids. So it was huge traffic to it. And this individual actually put this article in because he was one of, and the reason I included it is because at the beginning he was the one who was the biggest opposition. And when this went in the paper, the trustees were like, this is the first positive thing that he's ever said. We can't believe it. And he wrote it independently on his own in terms of you know, what his experience was. So I'm going to tell you now, because for the people who were at the training, one of the things I said is, you know, in P2 we always talk about all the things that go really well, but we never talk about the things that really are like a fail fest and the things that don't go really well. So I wanted to end on a couple of lessons around things that didn't go so well. So, and one of the biggest learnings I think for my career out of this experience was that I didn't actually take into account that if you're really successful and the parents and all of the schools, they start advocating, they start writing letters, they start talking to the newspapers and say, you know, we've never been engaged, but we understand this issue, and they actually understood the HVAC issues, and they were writing such powerful letters that the ministry basically came back to the school district and said, you know, okay, it's been pointed out to us, I'm kind of summarizing, but it's been pointed out to us that the rationale is about how we're not funding your schools is actually not very credible from this parents, and so we're going to increase the funding. But there was an incredible amount of pressure that then came on the school district from a political level at a higher level, which I can't really speak to, but I never saw coming. And it really surprised me, actually, in terms of how much influence certain people and certain departments at a provincial level actually have on what can happen and what can affect our processes, and how difficult it became for the school district in terms of they got their funding, everything happened, but then there was some very tense communication. And in the future, I don't have an easy answer for that, because in the end, it solved the problem in the schools in terms of the original problem statement, but it was a very difficult leadership situation. And so it was really challenging for some of the people that were involved in this process, but they did an amazing job. And I can tell you that the success of this program and the work that the staff did, the amount of presentations. The other big lesson, if you think it's going to take 3 or 4 times in terms of the amount of hours, I would triple it even more. And because the big lesson is you have to watch out for your staff getting burned out from the number of presentations, because they're doing this as part of their, not as their regular job. So they're going out and doing all these presentations, and we put a huge amount of effort in, and they did too. And it was really successful. But what made it successful for us as a team is the fact that the parents and the students really understood the issues, and they came out to so many meetings to talk about it. They were so engaged, they got it, and that's, I think that is the real win. At the same time, the challenge is, you have to pay attention to scales that are operating at different levels than your engagement that can really affect people's livelihoods and jobs. So it's something I would end there in terms of the presentation. And I'll take any questions.
So thank you, Catherine. Does anyone have any questions at the moment for Catherine? There'll certainly be time after as well with the City of Vancouver.
Lisa?
Yes.
Just a really quick question from those of us online. The tool, was it Post-it Plus?
Yes. It's called Post-it Plus. It's a 3M thing.
Okay. Thank you.
It's an app. And you can get it. It comes on iPhone and on the Android. Yeah, you can download it. It works really good.
Thank you.
Any other questions at the moment? Okay. Yes, Marcy. Do you want to come up and? Sorry, Marcy missed this. You come up and speak into the mic, because then they can hear you online.
So engagement HQ, Catherine, was that a white little thing table?
Yes, it's so engagement HQ is the bang the table technology, and I'd have to ask Anthea in terms of the how you actually do it, but it says when the public goes there, we had it branded as the school district Let's Talk website. But so they're not going to Engagement HQ. It's basically goes like right to theirs, and it was linked to the school district website. So from a it's very seamless in terms of the technology, and it allows all the resources to be put on there, but it also has all of these different aspects to it that people find quite useful, like chat areas. We had all kinds of live kind of talk things. We had many different things going on with that website that allowed people to get information. Is that kind of the best way to explain? Okay.
Any other questions right now for Catherine? Okay, thank you, Catherine. With that, the Vancouver team. Yeah, sulky. Well, oh dear.
Another one of us has 2 kids at home who are trying to put dinner on the table, and another one of us has a spouse who wants to be home quickly. So if you see like we're pacing in the back, that's what's going on. So we decide which of us.
So
which of us.
Remember this: they can see you if you stand here, and they can hear you really well here. So if you guys are just playing, like each kind of taking turns, but if you kind of want to shift yourself around on that side, that would be great.
A little bit through the grapevine?
Yeah. So, can we stand up?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just introduce ourselves. My name is Amanda Gibbs, and I'm the manager of public engagement at the City of Vancouver.
Can you come a little bit closer?
Sure.
How's that? How's that?
Thank you.
We're like, we're doing our screen impression.
It works for the
I'll be Freddie in the front.
my name is Matthew Halverson. I'm with the City of Vancouver's Facilities Planning Department. I'm an architect and the project manager for Britannia Renewal.
Hi, I'm Spencer Lindsay. I'm Indigenous Engagement Specialist on Amanda's team.
He has the date, so we're gonna
I have a date, so.
We're gonna make it go. We're gonna keep it moving. So we'll let Matt give as the project manager of the Britannia Renewal Project. We'll let Matt give us the overview.
We have to figure out where to stand between the screen and blocking everyone else. This is the spot. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit of background on what Britannia is, and then you can understand what we're jumping into. So Britannia is an 18-acre site that, and I think there's a future slide that I'll get into it. I guess we'll just say it was opened in 1976. It comes from a community, Grandview Woodland, Strathcona. It was developed shortly after the fight against the freeway system into Vancouver was won by a lot of people in that community, and so there was this kind of spirit of activism that was really kindled in Vancouver in the 70s, and this is kind of a byproduct of that in some ways. It's the same sort of spirit, this grassroots idea. Perfect. So you can see here, this is the slide that shows the 18-acre site. And really what it was an idea about social services from cradle to grave, starting with childcare, going through elementary school to secondary school, library, fitness, ice rink, just about anything you can imagine is there. Just to go back one slide briefly, there is along the bottom, you can see that there's these 5 organizations, and they're all represented on the site. So there's the City of Vancouver, the Vancouver School Board, Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation, and the Vancouver Public Library, and the Britannia Society itself. And there's 2 landowners, the city and the school board, but there's all these partners that have an interest in the site. And so there have been over the this building the site is about 40 years old. The buildings are getting old. There's in that group of five parties, there's some great ideas, and that's the kind of the grassroots idea of all of these kind of full life services for people coming together, social services. There's also challenges in terms of maintenance and operations in that model. So there's been as the buildings have been aging and the community's kind of outgrown that center, there's been this need for a master plan. It was initiated by the society itself. They'd done some master plans without the other partners at the table, and so that was obviously problematic. You can only go so far, and so this was the first attempt to get all the 5 site partners together and the community to work on this project. So there's a lot of different interests, there's a lot of different groups. Even within the Britannia Society, there's a whole bunch of different subcommittees, and so this was really chiefly an exercise before we even went out to the public of getting some internal alignment, and that was really, in some ways, that was the hardest part of this project, was just kind of setting up that governance to come together and make decisions and get to the outcome. So that's all to say. That's the kind of background. On top of that, and what we won the award for in this project was the Indigenous engagement. And so we have this kind of interesting thing where there's the 5 site partners, but there's also, with this, and maybe Spencer, you can touch on the city of reconciliation and what that means. There's a need to kind of bring along this parallel process, which is being delivered in a very different way. So I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good. So getting to engagement for a 30-year master plan on this huge site, a lot of different interests, from people who use the pools, the library people, the school, who owns most of a big portion of the land on the site. So it was a really big undertaking. I don't have our fancy slide that has, it was in the video, but it just gives an overview of all the engagement that we did. We touched a lot of people. Focus groups, speaker series, workshops. You know, we'd set up on a weekend kind of in the concourse and touch a lot of people who were taking kids to swimming lessons or skating or returning books to the library. A lot that happened. I was brought on kind of after the team had originally been formed to address the fact that, hey, you know, we are the City of Reconciliation. We have, you know, our goals as the City of Reconciliation. One of the goals of the City of Reconciliation is to improve the way we do decision making and include Indigenous people in that. So, you know, there hasn't been kind of a position like mine before, Indigenous engagement specialist. This was the big one that kind of got me, you know, into the city. I've since worked on some other projects, but this took up a lot of my time and was kind of my first big project. And it's because this neighborhood has the second highest proportion of urban Indigenous folks of anywhere else in the city. So there is a significant population, there's a significant presence there, and you know, those folks have never really been kind of heard and been part of the decision making. So I remember my first day, I walked into a meeting with these two and the consultants and other people from REFM at the city facilities, and I was like, so what am I here to do? And they're like, I don't know, just tell us what we could do, like tell us what we could do different. And so that was exciting as a practitioner, as a young person just getting into the field to be a bit creative. So I can point out some of the pictures here. The elder up in the right-hand corner, they're making crafts. And actually at one point, so basically my approach, I'll get to the pictures. My approach basically was, okay, I think what has been happening for a long time, which is positive, but I think we need to move a bit past this, is to talk about like diversity inclusion in the process. Some people would, you know, criticize a colonial institution based off the dispossession of Indigenous land with being like, okay, we're going to do things as we've always done, but now we're going to invite you to the table, and you can come to our speaker series. You can come, you know, have some coffee and sit down and put your thing on a Post-it note. We didn't want to do that. Some of that is required, right? Like, you know, inviting everyone, making accessible times, you know, in the evening when people can show up, reaching out to those networks to include. But that was just part of our process, you know. That meant having Indigenous speakers at the speaker series. But I was kind of interested in creating this separate but connected process where, you know, for example, what I would do is go to the senior center on the days where a lot of the elders and the seniors were making crafts together. It was the Healing Circle. It was a program originally designed for residential school survivors to kind of have a place to come together. There's, you know, people of all sorts of background. There was a Chinese Canadian woman who was teaching me how to bead when I was there, you know. And I went to there because I did the early engagement. I took people for coffee. I sat down. I was taken around the site. I asked, who do I talk to? It was some of the leaders, including this woman who's now on the board. And they're like, okay, well, come to our, you know, Senior Elders and Advocates Committee. And I came there, told them what I was there to do, very open book. And they said, just come by, just come get to know us. And that's really what I did. And I feel like we'll get to kind of my learnings later. But one of the things I really learned from that is sitting down, spending time with people, building those relationships. As I said in the video, not having any expectations going in. I really understood when seniors were advocating within the process, we want more room, we want more room. You know, that's heard one way. You know, you can analyze that data. But what I really learned from spending time was, you know, some of us have invisible disabilities or injuries, head injuries. We take the bus here, we take the handy dart here, you know, every day. or a few times a week, because otherwise we'd be totally secluded at home. So sometimes I don't even feel like participating, but this is my community. We value this drop-in space because, you know, after we go to dance class, we need somewhere to sit and socialize, support each other through what we're going through, and have that social network. I can't afford to go to a coffee shop, you know? So these are the kind of things that I learned from actually sitting down. And then also we had, on the left here, we had a Indigenous youth workshop. We were kind of vision boarding. We had Indigenous visioning workshop for kind of adults. And then we also had the first ever Indigenous design charrette that the City of Vancouver has done. That's just a tiny bit.
I'll just say a few things, and then we'll just do a few of our high-level learnings and then turn it over to you. It's interesting. I was just talking to Catherine and Lisa today about I'm trying to prepare a briefing for our new city council on what my team does. And despite what you may have heard in the media, I have a team of 5 people, not including me. I don't have a cast of thousands. And so I have myself, one other full-time advisor, a data analyst who works on our talk band survey panel, and I have somebody who's a program coordinator for a kind of an outreach program. So what we're meant to do, our mandate, is to try to touch every piece of engagement across the city. So often what happens is I will go in on very significant projects and sit with the team and try to deep level early on or upstream in the process to try to sit with them and support them in their process design, to think about their procurement, to really think through the development of the engagement. And so working with REFM and Matt and Danica Durkovich and Michelle Schulz and REFM, they hired a large urban design and engagement firm. And I think with as Matt told you, the complexity of the site, the complexity of the history, the complexity of the stakeholder relationships, it's an incredibly challenging piece of work. And then we bring in an external group, and then you see that there are 6 site partners. There's the VPL, there's the park board, the school board, the city, and who am I forgetting? There's 5. It felt like thousands. And so internally, we had this, and many of you have probably experienced this, the internal governance of this alone was astonishing and kind of beyond anyone's imagining. So we really tried to spend a lot of time, as much as we could, in the scoping of the process. And, you know, I was listening to Catherine talk about how many months it took to really do this properly, and we tried to sit down and do this. And early on in the process, what we realized is that I really realized that our team at the city was really lacking Indigenous-led leadership to support an Indigenous community. So that's when I recruited Spencer with support from REFM, and this was one of the first times that any city department had really taken a chance to really say, we're bringing someone in to co-lead a process, a community-led process, and it was really remarkable and challenging. And I'll tell you just very quickly, I don't know if anyone's heard this. I have some colleagues who work with the government of Alberta, and they talk about the fact that they don't have silos, they have cylinders of excellence. So if any of you work in municipal government, intergovernmental authorities, large NGOs, you know you have beautiful, shiny cylinders. So we have these wonderful colleagues who are all wonderfully professional, but who are all working in their own cylinders. And then we're asking them to work in a multidisciplinary way, and then to respond in a humble and thoughtful way to a community that has had basically nothing but distrust of government. So being able to support someone and recruit someone who is able to walk in and do that work with us, and also the challenge was really to try to create space in an institution that's still essentially governed by kind of institutionalized racism, genteel as it may be, lots of practices, lack of tools, really not understanding whiteness. So really how to support internally, and our well-meaning and lovely colleagues, but how to support
good governance internally to support good work happening externally. So it was a big mess and a beautiful mess, and a real testament to the goodwill of people involved and their willingness to try new things. So it's challenging and important and critical work, and a lot of people have to feel comfortable with awkwardness, being called out, being told that they're not the right people to lead processes, to stand back, to let others lead, and to be okay with that, even if they're not totally comfortable. So I'll stop talking so I won't model the white lady behavior I'm trying to address, you know. But maybe we should could we do a quick round? Because date, kids, wife. So we're gonna like spouse. Okay, so we're each gonna do one of our top 3 learnings, one of our top 3 challenges, and how we've changed our approach, and then we'll turn it over if there are any questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll start. I'll just start with the stereotypical project manager kind of response that, you know, there's you get a project, you want to deliver it on time and on budget, and I think the big learning here is that kind of goes out the window, and hopefully you've built in enough contingency, both time-wise and money-wise, that you can allow it to go out the window. So, you know, Spencer kind of alluded to it. You know, sometimes I felt like he was my canary, because he could be in the community and he could phone me up and say, you know, look, you're not hearing this group. This is what they're asking for. And I can say, yeah, I know what they're asking for. He says, no, you're really not hearing this group. And then we could talk for a while and say, okay, well, maybe we need to add something. And so with the elders, we set up an additional session to go back, make sure that we're hearing them correctly, give them the feedback that we've heard from them, and it did really wonders. It turned people that didn't trust the process into supporters of the process. Similarly with the Indigenous group, we had no idea what we were doing, like you said, and so an idea came up of an Indigenous charrette, and that was a process that wasn't really part of the original plan. We didn't have any budget, or we did have budget for it, but it wasn't part of the original scope. But we had the ability to add that piece of work into the process, and it could kind of happen organically, like this is the right thing. And we could kind of, there was enough give in the project that we could explore those things, and I think there was a lot of feedback because people could at least see that you were trying. Whether the outcome was what everyone wanted or not, maybe not, but they could understand what you were going through. So that was the big one for me, is not kind of being too rigid, so that you would kind of burn out a lot of trust in the community.
Oh yeah, question. I kind of told you about. I mean, I recently took a workshop at the city about kind of doing ethnography, and I was like, oh, that's kind of what I was doing. I was spending time with people, understanding kind of like the day in the life sort of perspective. So I think I really, you know, what I've learned is to build that in. I think one of the biggest challenges for me was really like institutionally learning like how these different departments work together, share and don't share, authority and power, like where the roadblocks are. I learned a lot, and I think learning how to translate what was heard when you do engagement, and learning like where that feeds in the process, and how to advocate, you know, for those things to, you know, kind of get in the plan and be understood. I think we have a long way to go. But yeah, that's
I have a lot of learning, but I would say my top learning institutionally would be that being a good ally for kind of transformational change internally means sometimes not being a good colleague. So being a good ally means taking risks, maybe being perceived to be non-collegial, or to calling people out, and that that's a difficult thing culturally. Often we're in very polite cultures, and that trying to make room means sort of taking being a bit of the battering ram. So that's learning. Yeah.
What are we doing now? Learning
Your
challenges?
challenge.
Oh, challenge.
They're all kind of combined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say one more.
You want to do the last one? How have you changed your approach of planning?
Yeah.
Policy.
Our pause.
I know.
No, I think how we've changed our approach. I had a thought. But it does have to do with how we. Oh, I know what it is. It's about that kind of transparency, and so that was one of the things. We had some very hard issues. We kind of skipped past the actual outcome of the master plan because it's not that most people are interested in this room, although we're happy to talk about it later. But we had some challenging issues. The site we were mandated by a council motion to explore putting non-market housing on the site, and that was a very contentious issue. And so we had to find a way of navigating some very difficult conversations, because historically in the 70s there was housing on the site and it was removed so that we could build the center. And so the idea of introducing it back in for some members in the community is completely not palatable. So but the idea of actually kind of going out and not going in with this is the outcome and we're going to just spend the time listening to and we're going to do what we're going to do anyways, but explaining to people what the issue is, where we're getting direction from, why we have to have this conversation, and having a genuine open conversation was really helpful, because by the end of it we actually had people feeding back to us, this is a challenging issue. There are multiple sides to this. It's really important that we have housing in this neighborhood. And so we were actually getting feedback from the community that was indicated that people understood the difficult decisions that we have ahead of us. And so that was mine.
I'm just gonna break the mold. Well, not break the mold, but I'm not gonna go with these questions. I don't want to end it positive because it makes us all feel better walking away, because we really have a long way to go. And I learned a lot through this process. But I have to say, I'm getting kind of, nostalgic for, a few months ago when this kind of wrapped up. But I'm thinking about those moments that felt like, we accomplished something, that we did something well. And it's important to realize your victories along the way. When we went back to the seniors and elders to say, here's what we heard, this is what we heard you say, and presented it to them. And it was kind of funny, I had a couple of bureaucrats, using some of the lingo in the room, and I was running in between the seniors and saying, I know, but fellow bureaucrats, using, and I'm like, this is what they mean when they said that. And I was kind of like, anyway, but afterwards they said, I really pissed off me. I'm a bureaucrat too. But afterwards they looked us straight in the eyes and they were like, you heard what we said. We don't trust that this is going to happen. Like how that's not exactly what we were looking for. But for them to be able to say, we feel that you have been heard, it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of all they needed. And then when it ended up going to council, we had a council member who looked at the, very active, people that have been on the seniors advisory committee for the city for 10 plus years, who were standing there, who were, were very concerned earlier on. None of those people spoke. There was one speaker at council. And two councilors said, I know this community, and this community is pretty noisy. Like, is there really no other people? And they're like, yep. And then another councilor asked too, and motioned to the senior, said, is this true? And they're like, yeah, we're good for now, So I don't believe that it's our job to in any way suggest like we're here to kind of calm people who are concerned down. Like that's not the point of doing engagement, and I really don't believe that. But I do think it kind of showed what we were able to accomplish.
Did you have a question? Yeah, let's sorry, you had long talk. No, that's okay. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the City of Vancouver team since we have them? Belinda, you have to go to the mic, sorry.
I will go.
We want our online friends to hear.
I actually just wanted to make a comment both about Katherine's presentation in the City of Vancouver, because it is just a function, I think, or a factor in our society. When you have a statutory agency, there is inherent distrust among communities. That is just a reality. And so I applaud you both for taking the time to really do meaningful engagement and really, engaging in a way that was real and that was significant and that was meaningful for people, and to move towards a place of trust, because that is not the place you start in. And I know I work in healthcare, and I'm telling you, most of our engagement starts from a place of deep mistrust. You are the big bureaucratic agency, and schools and cities are like that. So I just wanted to say that I really applaud that you guys did that work, and it was so interesting to hear about some of your learnings, and especially when you said about the collegial, you kind of like play off. Within our work, we're sometimes known as the conscience of the organization. So you're kind of set apart because sometimes you are in that not combative, but you're in that kind of opposite end where you're trying to represent that voice, and that's hard to do. So good on you guys.
Does anyone online have any questions?
I think just a quick comment.
Sure.
And that was everyone looks for inclusion, and just watching the two presentations, you've succeeded. So congratulations.
That was Amelia Shaw that was on the phone. So thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because somebody has a date behind me. I'm not sure who, but not judging Spencer. But so I wanted to wrap up quickly. Just say, Catherine and I very quietly had a conversation. And what is so interesting is the two presentations really came together in a way that we did not necessarily plan. We were really excited to have both groups talk about their projects and how to work out including people more. But what was really interesting, some of the learnings that you may take away, and when I saw lots of heads nodding, and even to build what Belinda said, is that really looking, we all work, we're all practitioners, we all really believe in the core values of Iap2 and doing good engagement for the public. But it's that internal side, and that's that internal piece that we're people too, and we've got a lot of jobs to do with that internal team. And I loved hearing about the different work you guys both did with your internal teams, and I know we all have those struggles with our internal teams, our clients, our directors, our other, whoever they are. So I thought that was really interesting that kind of was certainly not planned, but that really kind of rose to be an intersection. Yeah, how they connected. And I think that's a really interesting thing. So do any of you have anything else to add?
No, just that is an interesting intersection. I know we said when we were talking, how interesting this internal capacity building, but also asking the challenging questions.
Yeah.
Building their capacity.
Yeah. So I think that was very interesting. So with that, I wanted to thank you all. So thank you so much, and thank you very much for joining us online and being patient, for starting late and taking a few blips along the way. But thank you, Amelia, for organizing and joining us online. Thank you to everyone here, and please, there's certainly some more beverages. Drew would love to see you, and some more food, and if not, have a good evening, and I'm sure the chapter will be in touch with you all soon. So thank you.
Thanks very much for signing off. Everyone else to sing, thank you. Bye-bye.